Hey guys, Noel here, and it is Sunday night, and only got a little bit of free time on my hands. I thought it'd be fun for us to do a weblog for the pro wrestling and sports section of the Noel Comics YouTube channel. I have just finished watching AEW's All Out pay-per-view on Bleacher Report, and while it's fresh in my mind, I thought it would be fun to do a reaction video and a little bit of a critique. So I'm not going to go like match by match and do like an exhaustive pick apart of each thing. I just kind of want to give my general impression, my thoughts on AEW, my thoughts on the state of professional wrestling, and just kind of shoot from the hip and have some fun with my current and future viewers. Overall, I thought the pay-per-view was quite good. It was long, and this is a trend with professional wrestling pay-per-views. They are very long. This pay-per-view started at 8 o'clock at night, and it ended at midnight on the dot. And with AEW, and this is like one of the things I like about AEW, but it's also a mild challenge watching AEW. The matches are so thick with content and moves that they're very enjoyable to watch, but they also are a bit exhausting. WWE's matches I find to be boring, sterile, and I feel like the whole product of WWE is hyper-produced and bland and just generally unenjoyable to watch. I have been a pro wrestling fan all my life, and really for the past probably 4 years, I have had zero desire to watch WWE, and I was just about tuned out of professional wrestling before AEW came along and kind of rekindled some of my WCW style optimism. I mean, I liked WWF back in the day. I was more of a WCW fan, but WCW always had, in my opinion, better quality matches for the majority of the time, especially with, the Japanese matches, the Mexican matches, and even people like Hulk Hogan at the top of the card using more of his Japanese moveset as opposed to just kind of going through the motions of, big spectacle-based handful of moves. And when WCW went under, those types of matches that were thick with high spots, a lot of technical wrestling, those tended to no longer occupy a lot of time on American professional wrestling in the mainstream. But when AEW came along, that changed. And I can remember watching the first Dynamite and really getting the feeling that I was watching WCW cruiserweight matches once again, and it felt really good. So I have been a big supporter of AEW, and I'm really happy to see wrestling back on Turner Television. This pay-per-view, the matches that stood out the most to me was their casino ladder match, which had a masked winner, which was the big payoff of the show. And they did, for as much as Eric Bischoff likes to kind of snipe at AEW, Eric Bischoff always talks about building anticipation. And apparently Tony Khan has been listening to him, because this show did an excellent job of building anticipation within the pay-per-view and anticipation beyond the pay-per-view. So the Battle Royal match, I have my 5-year-old son next to me. We were watching it. I was kind of editing YouTube videos on my phone. He was playing on the computer, and I was just kind of watching the match. And it was, good from what I had seen, but I wasn't hanging on every move. But definitely the thing I noticed was the masked winner kind of teasing to take the mask off and leaving it on. And right then I thought to myself, that better be MJF under that mask. And we'll see what happened in the rest of the pay-per-view. There was a 4-way women's match to crown the interim AEW women's champion, and that match stood out. It's nice to see pretty girls fight in spectacular ways, and that match definitely delivered that. Jamie Hayter was really getting over with the crowd, and I'm kind of surprised they didn't have her win the match, because there was a great part of that match where Britt Baker tried to screw her. Like, she tried to like pin her and then went to go put her finish move to like kind of finish the knife in the back, and it didn't quite come to fruition, and the crowd had really gotten behind Jamie Hayter. So I really hope AEW builds on that. There was a Chris Jericho match where he used his Lionheart gimmick against Bryan Danielson, and I thought that was a quite good match. And I was a bit disappointed that Jericho did not come out to All the Days of My Life. I know he hates that song, but when he was really Lionheart in WCW, that really cool synth pop song was great. The Elite match against the Dark Order was also quite good. Kenny Omega is my favorite wrestler of this generation, and he was in top form in this match, and he used great ring psychology. The finish of the match was very good, where he looked like he was going to get hit with Hangman Page's finisher, and he ducked, and Hangman Page knocked out his tag partner, and Omega pinned him because the Young Bucks attacked Adam Page. Adam Page, I think he's a cool enough wrestler, but I was not a big fan of him personally as champion. I thought he was a bit lacking in personality in order to carry the heavyweight belt. He comes off as kind of a pretty boy cowboy, which is what it is, but that doesn't really scream to me like I'm aspiring to, be you or identify with you, So I think Hangman Page is cool to have in the upper mid card, but at the top of the card, not so much. But as a rival to Kenny Omega and as a member of the Elite or someone fighting the Elite, I think that works well. And Kenny Omega was over like Rover, as they say, and I always think AEW is at its best when Kenny Omega is the champ, but that match ended with a new triple tag team champion, Kenny Omega and Young Bucks, and I think that is a good way to really give those guys some metal to be a vehicle for building their prestige, giving them opportunities to have good matches and making them look strong. Because I think what really hurt AEW early on was not pushing the Bullet Club members. And I think they were almost too nice. And Kenny Omega kind of just wallowed in the mid-card when everyone was just kind of expecting him to be right in the main event picture right off the bat. And, once he did get the belts, I started watching Impact Wrestling again, because I had not watched TNA since they left Pop TV. And then once Kenny Omega became their champion, I started watching again on Twitch. And now I still watch them on YouTube, because I started to redevelop the habit of watching them because Kenny Omega was such a good champ, not only in TNA and as AEW as well. Trying to think. Sting, as always, is just my favorite professional wrestler currently. Kenny Omega might be my favorite professional wrestler of this generation, but Sting is my favorite active professional wrestler, and he had a great match against the House of Black. AEW knows how to utilize Sting. WWE was atrocious with their handling of Sting. In my opinion, they should be ashamed of themselves. I'm really baffled with how badly WWE dropped the ball with Sting. Sting was 100% right to be suspicious of what would happen to him if he went to WWE, and WWE botched Sting's presence there in ways that makes WCW's handling of Bret Hart look like, I don't know, WrestleMania 3 or something like that. I mean, Bret Hart was handled much better in WCW than Sting was handled in WWE. And, that is what it is. I mean, and I don't think Bret Hart was used to his potential in WCW, but he was treated, at least, I mean, he was injured and his career was over, but, the WWE, but at least Bret Hart got some, wins and momentum and stuff like that. Sting was just 2 losses and a career-ending injury, and that's that. Congratulations for finally selling out. There's your prize. So, but AEW has done nothing but book Sting like a king, and they're really smart with how they book him because it's understood that he's old, but he's smart old. He's like Michael Jordan when Michael Jordan got older. He didn't go for the dunks, but he went for the fadeaway threes and did more with less. And the ending to this match with Malachi Black, Sting used the mist against him out of nowhere. Sting was like faking an injury. And Sting had done, like, he was like no selling, and it was believable. And he had Malachi Black and the Scorpion Deathlock, and he was doing all these like really cool crafty moves, and the crowd was going nuts for him. And I was feeling like a 13-year-old again. And, it looked like Sting looked like he was really hurt because, he's older. And I was like, oh, geez, I hope he's not like actually hurt. And then Malachi Black, who's like this big badass, went to go kind of like finish him off. And you did kind of feel a legitimate sense of like, even if this is fake, my man's going to lose. And this thing like turned around and spit black mist right in his face. And that led to him getting, pinned and beaten. And it was a great ending to the match. So that was good. I did get a sense that the pay-per-view was just like the matches sometimes were so long. I was like, when is this going to get over? And it wasn't like I was in a hurry for it to get over, but I was like, seriously, how much longer is this going to go? And then it finally got to main event time. And, I'm someone who always has mixed feelings about CM Punk. I think CM Punk is a talented professional wrestler, and I respect him for getting in a cage, especially at the highest level of the UFC. When people get on the internet and they're like, oh, well, I'd get in a cage for $1 million. It's like, dude, you don't even understand. Like, I train with jujitsu and boxing, and I have been asked multiple times, hey, Noel, when are you going to get a fight? And I just think to myself, like, that is a lot to take on. I don't know if I have time to do that. I have to get myself in a mental state to do that. I have to think about like training and diet, and then also the amount of physical damage that's going to be done to me once you get into a cage situation. I mean, if you're a good enough fighter, you'll be okay, but it's a weighty decision, and to do that at the highest possible level is not an easy decision to make. And while CM Punk's showing in the cage was not great to really bad, he should be respected for doing that. And he's apparently trained for years at a high level, although I don't see that as translated very well to anything practical. However, when you're also in a cage at the highest level, sometimes you can't always show what you got. But the other part of me thinks that CM Punk is just a loudmouth who writes checks that he can't cash because he buys his own hype. And it really annoyed me when he came out with that pro-abortion shirt, because it was just like, oh, you can't fight and you're taking morally indefensible positions. So, anyway, I don't want to get into like politics or whatever. But I mean, for someone who's got that big of an ego and that bad of training videos, I was kind of like, but CM Punk also was the first wrestler who ever gave me the time of day at a show, and he didn't have to do that. He gave me a high five with his sweaty, taped up hand, and I've heard that CM Punk can be a jerk at wrestling shows too. So, I mean, I'm just a fan shooting my mouth off, and regardless of the mistakes that he has made in or out of the ring, he deserves respect for the amount of legwork he's put into his career as a pro wrestler and a mixed martial artist. Why am I saying this? Because I wasn't necessarily expecting that much with CM Punk's heavyweight title match against Jon Moxley, but it was a very good match. And it was a good match that used blood strategically. I didn't feel like it was gratuitous. I felt like it was used in a way that made CM Punk look like he was going to lose, and then made his victory more meaningful. It was a highly competitive match with the former Dean Ambrose and Jon Moxley is his name now. And it was it was a match where I was, kind of just, I had sat through the entire pay-per-view and was a little fatigued, and I was very much standing up and pacing during that match because I was anticipating what was going to happen. Now, if memory serves me correctly, the last All Out was the Gauntlet debuts of Bryan Danielson and Ruby Soho and Adam Cole, and that was just a euphoric pay-per-view. If that was that pay-per-view, I'm pretty sure that was All Out, was when that happened. I had friends over, and we were all going nuts. This utilized MJF, and they did a fantastic job. MJF was the Joker, was the masked wrestler. And I thought to myself, MJF should challenge CM Punk and take that belt right off him at this pay-per-view. That would be phenomenal, because CM Punk is a bloody pulp. Like he was. He looked like crap at the end of the match. He was all bloody. And so MJF, they play a answering machine recording of Tony Khan pleading with MJF to come back, which I thought was like a nice touch. And just saying, like, you know what, you don't have to sign a contract extension. I'll let you be the Joker in the Battle Royal. And, I'll give you a raise or blah, blah, blah. And it was like, so it was like, it made MJF look like a real bastard that was exploiting the fans and the boss, which was great for his character, as this kind of villainous guy. And he did a nice job, like kind of taking off the mask and putting a scarf on. And the only thing was, I was expecting MJF to go down there, and the crowd was like apart. It's not like he got no reaction. It was just kind of surreal to see him, because it was very well done on AEW's part to do this worked shoot, to the point where people genuinely thought that he was never going to show up on TV until his contract ran out. So in professional wrestling, it's very hard to make fans confused. Most fans think that they know what's going to happen, and I think a lot of fans were worked by the MJF situation. So good work for Tony Khan and the writers at AEW. But MJF, rather than going down to beat CM Punk, did the very WCW thing of, you'll have to tune in on Wednesday to see what happens, which is exactly what they always did on Nitro. Leave you at the edge of your seat and say, we're out of time, see you next week. So it was good stuff, and it made me feel like I was watching WCW again. And that's a good thing, because WCW was my childhood, and it was my favorite wrestling company. And I'm happy that AEW is, really produced a quality pay-per-view. I know on the internet, people have been, raving about WWE under Triple H. I just don't care. I really don't. I don't care what NXT guys are back. I'm tired of WWE's presentation. I think it's just overproduced and stale, and I don't care. And I'm not saying I would never watch WWE, but I just have no interest in watching WWE. And this AEW pay-per-view has made sure that I will tune in on Wednesday to see what happens on Dynamite. I do wish Ring of Honor would get a show. So that would be my thing I wish AEW would do. I wish they'd give Ring of Honor its own show. And I wish they would. Rampage is just a terrible time slot. They need to get that thing off Friday at 10 o'clock at night, because that is not a good wrestling time slot. I want to be live streaming at 10. I don't want to be staying up watching wrestling for an hour on a B show. You know what I'm saying? Anywho, well, that's my take on AEW's All Out 2022. I thought it was a very good pay-per-view, and I hope you've enjoyed my take on things. Until next time, my name is Noel. You take care, and I will see you in the very near future for more pro wrestling weblog action. Bye-bye.